huge on transparency. That's not the attitude, which was $36,000. I would have not had a global pandemic happen. Literally no matter what they do, I'm not going to dislike them, but they rejected me, so I got nothing. There was just about nothing in me that thought I would ever just sit down and spontaneously make a video at, 9:49 on a Wednesday night. But really what it is that I've been planning doing further Q&As just because there's a lot of questions that I get and I like to use my experience, you know, to help inform people's experiences who are going through the same thing as me. And as I was preparing for this Q&A just now, like I was gathering the questions and kind of brainstorming some talking points for my answers, I just wanted to talk about it. Like I just felt ready to film this video. And so this is like the first of its kind, me just, you know, wrapped up in a blanket sitting on my floor, really past my bedtime. The lighting's not great. Actually, one of my bulbs went out today, so the lighting is extra not great. But like I said, this is a real and raw Q&A, and it just felt like I didn't want to sit down and type it all whenever I just felt like I was ready to talk it, you know? And so these questions are all coming straight from you. Lots of times I'll ask for questions on the community tab, but then also my Instagram is always linked down in my description if you ever just want to chat. Maybe you're wondering something that you didn't mention that isn't mentioned in this video. I just want to communicate that this is always an open discussion, and if I say anything that you want to know more about or that you disagree with or you have like some nuance to an opinion, I just want you to know that this channel is an open discussion between all of us. So question number one, just starting out with a bang, do you regret doing grad school online? There is a part of me that feels like I missed out on some experience by doing grad school online, but let me elaborate. I mentioned in a recent reflection video, the MSW reflection video, kind of how I came to my decision to do online grad school. For me, it was because I wanted to be in this location. I wanted to be in Atlanta, and there weren't in-person options available to me in Atlanta. There is University of Georgia that is in Athens that is like 45 minutes away, but they rejected me, so they made themselves not be an option anymore. And so for me, if I wanted to be in Atlanta, it was going to be online school. And I wanted to be in Atlanta because it was a good match of a new location to me without being totally alone in a new city, because Zach was here, Zach's friends were here, so I already knew people in Atlanta, but I wasn't still in Tuscaloosa, and I didn't just like fly off by myself to somewhere entirely new. So it was a good mix. I wanted to be in Atlanta, and so online school was the option for me. I will say that with social work, field placement is a really good mediator to some of the cons of online school because my field placement was in person, which is not the case for everybody. And some people like online field placements, some people don't, but mine was in person, which was really helpful to me because I had a place to be and people to see 3 times a week. That being said, I do think that the part that I missed out on by doing online school is really that sense of community that you get from people in your classes. I also just think personally, my best friendships are usually those that are made by forced proximity. Just in that I feel like I do connect with people who I have to see, and in online class that's just really different. Like I have people I text. I have probably 5, 6, 7 people from my program that like I could text right now and it would be normal. So like we're friends, but it is different whenever they are living all across the country and are not in my location here. And so that was kind of the hard part sometimes, is that the social element of school just really wasn't there. And I think it didn't hit me too much during the year that I was missing that community aspect of school by doing online school because I was so busy and my field placement was in person. I think it really hit me whenever I turned in my last piece of work and I was sitting right over there in my bed and I just turned it in and I kind of realized like I don't really have anyone to celebrate with, which sounds pitiful and sounds sad. And I think that was like kind of the only moment where I thought maybe I should have done school in person, because it just didn't feel like the end of school because I wasn't like building up to this moment, so proud of myself and the people around me for doing it. It's a very different feeling whenever you're online and you're not with the people who are also graduating with you. Now, could I have made that moment better by choosing to go to my graduation? I probably could have, but different opportunities are coming up and I'm not going to my graduation because I'll be elsewhere, which those videos are coming up soon if I haven't already said where I'm going. But I think that was the only moment where I did a little bit regret doing online school, just in that I missed the community part of school that can be so fun and fulfilling and make school that much better. Learning wise, I don't think online school affected me. I think that's also a learning style type of thing, but community wise, I didn't necessarily feel the lack throughout the year, but it has hit me a little bit recently where it's like I don't just have people that were like my best friends through school. you know? Segueing into the next question, what sacrifices did you make for grad school? There were quite a few sacrifices that I made for grad school, and I don't even think all of them were conscious, and I don't think that I knew going into the grad school year that I was going to be making all of these sacrifices. For example, I had high hopes for my social life this year, especially with moving to Atlanta. I knew people here. I was excited to meet new people here, and my social life just really was a sacrifice this year because I was so busy with my internship, with classwork, and then with working whenever I was outside of it. And then with YouTube too. Like, those are already 4 commitments. It's hard to fit something else in there. And since my social life was optional and I didn't have necessarily already built-in friends here that I was just naturally going to see, I was really bad about like following through with people I met. I really didn't have a pop-in social life this year at all. And so I think that that is probably the biggest sacrifice that I think I made through grad school. And also a lot of it just kind of was like the perfect storm of online school, moving to a new city, the comfort of living with my boyfriend because then I have interaction every day. Obviously he can't be my only friend, but it is that like comfort that doesn't force me out into the city. And I did meet people here and I do know people here that I like and would like to know better, but I've just been really bad about following through with friendships and like setting up times to actually see each other and do things together because I've been so busy. So that's a goal going forward now that I have more free time, that I won't sacrifice my social life to work whenever that starts. A few other sacrifices, I do feel like experiences were also sacrificed just in that same way of I already had my big commitments, and so my little graduate school life very much did not look like, I don't know, like Insta-worthy lives. Like there wasn't many cute aesthetic outings or like many super fun memories and experiences made. Now that being said, like I do go out to dinner sometimes. Like recently in April or so, as you know, I've like been taking myself on dates around the city and everything. So that wasn't the whole entire year, but I do think that again, with the time commitment of grad school, of both classes and the internship, and then I was working on the weekends too, there just wasn't much fun time to be had, which is definitely a sacrifice, even if I didn't like willingly decide to sacrifice it. But I think by making those sacrifices is how I had such a great educational year, which obviously you don't want like all of your priorities always to be on the education and the work, but in my MSW reflection video, I feel like I'll keep referencing that one because I just filmed it a few days ago and I keep thinking about it. In my MSW reflection video, I talk about how good of a like social work growth year this was for me, both in internship and in classes. And so by making those social and experience sacrifices for grad school, I did learn a lot this year. Like I had a really good school year. So the sacrifices hurt at some points. Honestly, just to get deep with it, I was lonely a lot of this year, but I'm going to change that going forward. I'm going to take the initiative to change that going forward. And I did have a really good learning experience this year, which I do think is important, especially because I paid for it, which we'll get into too. Don't worry. Someone asked, was your education well-rounded? Because they've like heard both sides with social work educations of if they feel like they were well-rounded. And personally, I feel like mine was. I know every program is different. It wasn't well-rounded in the sense of like of all types of education of things that we could learn, but within the field of social work, obviously, I do feel like it was pretty well-rounded. And I liked too that it was pretty customizable. So how Fordham did it was we had 4 different domains and we had to take at least 1 class in each of the 4 domains. And then there was 1 more required class, and then we had 3 spots for electives. And so of the 4 domains, it was organizations and communities, individuals and families, policy, and research. So you had to take at least 1 from each of those. And so I think that's where the well-roundedness came, is because if I was just up to choose, I probably wouldn't take a research class, I probably wouldn't take a policy class, and I probably wouldn't take a communities class. But I had to take all of those, and I learned good skills in those, whether or not I'll use them like explicitly in my jobs coming up. But I know that they will be helpful to me, even just in social work perspective, to have that well-rounded picture of social work. And then the required class was the advanced clinical assessment and diagnosis class. Every single person had to take that one. That's the DSM-5 class. And then of the 3 electives, I chose for all of mine to be within the individual and family domain, just because that's where I want to be in social work, is like that micro working one-on-one with people or working one-on however many with families. But with those 3 electives, someone could kind of zero in like I did, or they could take however many from the different domains and kind of stay spread out out if they wanted to. So I liked that Fordham had, I think, a good mix of making me take some of different topics, but also letting me feel like my education was customizable to myself. So I think that's something whenever you're looking for an MSW program to look at is kind of how customizable the program is, because some have just like set classes that you take and you take those and you're done, and some you can really pick your track a little bit more, and all of them are going to have requirements of like certain ones you need to take and everything. But I think that if that's something that's important to you, look for ones that offer the classes that you want, because then, you know, you'll feel happy that you did it. And so Fordham, I feel like, did it well, and I feel like I would be prepared to kind of enter any spot in social work right now. Like, it would obviously still be a learning curve going different places, but I feel like I would be prepared. I don't feel like there are areas of social work that I'm just totally missing out on. Okay, for a little bit of tea, because if you are new, or if I haven't said this explicitly, I'm huge on transparency. Like, if I don't share something, then it's likely due to it being related to someone else's privacy, or it just hasn't been asked, and so I haven't known to say it. So I am big on transparency, and so that will be what we're going with this question. But what were the finances of college really like, both undergrad and grad? Because I know that obviously is a big, huge consideration, and it was for me as well, looking into like, is grad school an option, different grad programs and everything. And so for me, my undergraduate degree was entirely paid for. I had a full ride to the University of Alabama, and I got that because I was a National Merit Scholar, entirely based on my PSAT score from junior year of high school. And so I don't even know if I've talked about this for real on my channel, but I didn't think I was going to the University of Alabama until about 2 weeks before decision day, senior year of high school. I wanted to go to the University of Georgia. I had it like set in my head that was my dream school. I wanted to go there, and the University of Alabama had this full ride option available. They really tried to get National Merit Scholars to come to their school, and eventually money talked, and I applied, like I said, 2 weeks before decision day, and obviously ended up going to University of Alabama, which I mentioned earlier how University of Georgia rejected me for grad school. I think it's because I had committed to them and then didn't go. I think I'm blacklisted from University of Georgia. That's my theory. That's my conspiracy. So that being said, at the University of Alabama, I still worked part-time every year except freshman year that I was there, and I worked 2 part-time jobs my last semester, but my tuition was paid for, my housing was paid for, my books were paid for. I got $2,000 that went towards my study abroad the summer after freshman year, and I'm trying to remember if there was more parts to that scholarship or not, but it was a really good scholarship. Like, when I say full ride, I mean tuition plus some, which obviously set me up in a good position to pursue grad school right after undergrad, because my family had some money that wouldn't have gotten me all the way through undergrad, but could definitely get me through 1 year of grad school. I worked all through college because like living expenses, like groceries and stuff, that's what my part-time jobs went towards, but I get that it was in a lot better position than I would have been had I not had a scholarship. So I paid for all my groceries and all of that and everything, gas, you know, the whole shebang, car, all of that, but that's why I worked, and I didn't have to work to pay tuition. I just had to work to pay those extra expenses. That being said, going into grad school, cost was a big thing because, like I said, I had some money from family that was going to go towards like undergrad or college or whatever, and since I didn't have to use all of it for University of Alabama, then I had some ready for grad school. I applied to University of Denver, Columbia University, Fordham, University of Alabama, University of Georgia. Was rejected from the University of Georgia. Mental health wise, did not want to stay at the University of Alabama, and education wise, I felt like I had gotten to know the School of Social Work, and so I wanted to branch out a little bit more. What else did I say? Columbia University would have been $75,000 for the entire school year. Then on top of that would have been like living in New York City, so it was just far too expensive. And then University of Denver would have also been, I think it was like $65,000. I just decided was not going to be a good option for me, and so I chose Fordham, which was $36,000 for the whole year. That included like everything, like tuition, fees, I forget what else you have to pay for, but $36,000, which, full transparency wise, you can find online programs that are cheaper. Like University of Kentucky, I'm pretty sure, is a pretty affordable one. I've heard Missouri State is a pretty affordable one. You just have to make sure that the program works for you, but Fordham was $36,000. And to be quite honest, I like just exactly barely made it to where I was able to pay those $36,000 based on what I had from family set aside, and then from working last summer I had some savings, and like from working all of undergrad I had some savings, and so it zeroed out my savings in January. I feel like I mentioned it in a vlog, I forget. There was a second when my bank account was exactly zero, but I didn't have to take out any student loans, which I realize has put me in a better position than I deserve as I graduate. So that's what the finances looked like for me, just to be transparent with it as you watch my videos, to have like a perspective if you would like that. I had thought that I wouldn't work in grad school, and I ended up, yes, working because just living expenses and everything, I needed more money coming in. And so I have worked over the weekends, which made this be a stressful year, but also has helped set me up better with a little bit more cushion for groceries and gas and having like an emergency savings fund for whenever my brakes went out and I suddenly have to spend thousands of dollars on my car. Remember when that happened? Or when I roll a stop sign and have to pay $300 to the city of Atlanta. Remember when that happened? It just was nicer to have an income than to not work. So that is the finances of college for me. And I get that my situation does not look like everyone's situation. I get that I was very lucky to not have to take out student loans. And so that just puts me in a different position now. And like I said, I feel like it's a better position than I deserve, but that's the finances. Oh, a whole important thing to talk about. I feel like I had heard from so many people that you can get your grad school funded. And for me, I did not successfully get any kind of grant, scholarship, anything that really would have made a difference for me in any of the schools that I applied for. So the $36,000 was with no help because they didn't offer that. Columbia University did give me $20,000, which sounds like a lot, but it means that it brought it from $90K to $70K, so it was still just way too much. No third-party scholarships, nothing for me. And I tried too. Like, I really tried. This was another question that somebody mentioned, public service loan forgiveness, and there are programs like that, and also like ones I know some states have for like child welfare or just various like VA, something like that, where they will pay part of your tuition if then you will agree to work for them for like a year or so after you graduate. So some states have programs like that that you can look into. And then there's also the public service loan forgiveness in Georgia. I don't know how it works in other states. In Georgia, if someone does have student loans and they work for the state for 10 years, their student loans get forgiven no matter like how many they are. So a lot of my coworkers have an internship, like are in that program and are kind of working for those 10 years trying to stay a state employee. Personally, I didn't do either of those programs because I don't think Georgia even has one for like the child welfare where it's like we'll pay you and then you give a year to us. I don't think they have that, but they do have the 10-year public service loan forgiveness. So just kind of look into those things as you prepare for grad school. But I would say don't count on getting too much help other than loans because I got nothing. And like I said, I tried. Okay. Were there any unexpected time commitments in grad school? For me, I don't think that any of the time commitments were unexpected. I think I did expect them all. But from my cohort and from talking to other people, it seems like the internship that comes with social work degrees can come as a surprise to some people. And I think for me, that wasn't the case necessarily because at Alabama, it was always set up to where like field is the main thing. And then like your classes are just supplementary to your field placement. So I think I had that mindset going into Fordham as well. But your internship takes up a lot of time, specifically about 16 to 21 hours a week. So think of it as 2 or 3 full work days. Granted, people do work full time. They do have kids and they can successfully do that. But I do know that with people I talked to or just discussions I witnessed, some people feel put out by the time commitment that's required of an internship in social work. And as you know, just from me talking, I think that's where the learning happens. I see the value in the internship definitely. And so it didn't really come as a surprise to me as a time commitment, but that is just something to be aware of, is to know that 2 to 3 days of your week will be committed to most likely unpaid internship where you can get to know social work better and practice it with support and supervision wherever you are placed. So just know the time commitment that goes into internship. Other than that, I feel like the readings and the papers and everything, it just varies week to week in how many hours you need to spend towards them. Like if you have 2 papers due, obviously you're going to spend more hours than if you just have to watch a couple lectures. So the classwork really fluctuates, but count on that internship taking up some time. What would you have changed to make graduate or undergraduate journeys more efficient, smooth, enjoyable, or meaningful? I would have not had a global pandemic happen. I don't think I've like talked about this fully in a heart-to-heart sense. I've probably made some sarcastic comments about it every now and again just because, you know, coping, but I don't think I've even like really sat and taken the time to let myself feel how I could feel about this. But I genuinely feel like I did not really have a college experience, and I don't know, like I don't think I'm too disappointed by it, but essentially how my college went was freshman year I was just in a big old adjustment period. Like I had a couple close friends, but but I was not at all like out partying, having the time of my life for freshman year. And then sophomore year, I feel like it was on the up and up. Like I'd had a really good first semester. I had a group of friends. I was doing fun things. And then second semester, like the momentum continued, and then COVID hit, and I feel like I haven't had college since then. And so I had about a year and a half of college being regular, and I feel like only the half of that was like fun and enjoyable. And so out of 4 years, I feel like I had 4 months that were the college experience. And I don't think I'm as bothered by that as other people necessarily are, just in the sense that regardless, I'm like a homebody. I'm introverted. I like having just like a few close friends. But if I think about it too hard, sometimes I do kind of, I guess, like mourn the years lost, not to be dramatic. But truthfully, like I said, freshman year was just a big adjustment period. I had sad days, didn't have too many friends at all, didn't have too many fun experiences. Sophomore year was great, but it came to a halting stop with COVID. And then my junior/senior year, because my undergrad was done in 3 years, was COVID still, where Alabama was in person. Most schools throughout the country were not, but Alabama was in person. But ethically, I just did not feel right going to like hang out with anybody or go to fun events or anything like that, even though they were happening in Alabama. But I kind of think that made it feel worse to me, because it was like I was doing what the rest of the country kind of was doing whenever most people, like fall 2020, whenever most people were still like in online school, isolating for the most part, social distancing, everything, and the school of Alabama really was not. And so I feel like that made it worse for me, because it was like I could see everyone else living their life as normal, but I just couldn't convince myself that it was life as normal because we were still in like the thick of it. So yeah, not having COVID would have made my undergrad a lot more enjoyable. A lot more enjoyable. That being said, I know that's not quite the answer you're looking for, because obviously we couldn't have fixed that. I think my thoughts about undergrad, I have put in a video that I came out with last summer. Didn't gain a lot of traction, but I really liked the video and I like all that I said in it, so I'll put it in the little eye in the sky. It'll be embarrassing if this is the wrong side, but I thought about it and I convinced myself it's this side, which I think has all of my thoughts about being in college, especially coming from someone who the like dream college life just like wasn't necessarily for me. That video has all of my thoughts just about how to do college well and the mindset to have in college. As far as grad school, what I would have done different is I think I would not have as quickly given up my social life as I did. And I didn't consciously do it, but I just really like didn't follow through with people. Got dinner with a couple people like once and then just kind of like watched from afar as other people hung out. But if you're not like a consistent friend, then obviously like I can't expect people to just be free any weekend that I'm free and decide that I have the energy to hang out. So I think I would have not given up quite as quickly as I did in my grad school year of like being social and having relationships outside of Zach. But going forward, I will try that. And I think why that is important is just because even though grad school is an intense year or years depending on what you're doing, it still has to be well-rounded. Like I did get a really good school experience, but I very much zeroed in on school and work. It's really boring. Not what life's about. Is there anything someone should get familiar with before studying social work? I think that's something someone should be familiar with before studying social work, or even before deciding if they should study social work, if social work is for them, is knowing your soft skills. And by that I mean just kind of being familiar a little bit with how you are interpersonally and how you view other people, how you see other people, how you treat other people, how you talk to other people. Just being familiar with that, because that is something that if you don't have any kind of introspection in your soft skills, your social skills, then you won't be able to refine and get better as you... I don't know what that sound was. I just heard a sound and it totally took away every train of thought I was having. If you're not used to having that kind of introspection and reflection about yourself, then it will be hard to do social work well necessarily. And I don't mean make it through school, because you can make good grades in social work without being the best social worker. And what I mean by that is there is the academic side of social work, but there's also just the interpersonal relational side of social work, and both are just as important as each other. And so some things that personally I think every person pursuing social work should at least have or try to have, because obviously you can't be perfect. One is practice having unconditional positive regard for people around you. This can be hard, and I'm not calling you to do this like in your personal life necessarily, because that's just impossible to have unconditional positive regard for everyone you come across. But start trying to have unconditional positive regard for like strangers you see on the street or the people you're driving next to. And by this I mean just having the belief that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. Really changes your perspective and your mindset on on the people around you, and I think puts you in a much better place as you are in a helping profession doing social service of some sort, to have that kind of mindset, because when you become a social worker, you don't get to not like a client. On a personal level, maybe you don't like that client, but you do not get to let them know that you don't like them. You have to have unconditional positive regard for people that you work with, because it's not your job to come in and judge them, or to come in and make any judgments against them. That's literally the exact same thing I just said. Your job is to be in there and do social work. So practice having unconditional positive regard for people. I'm just going to keep saying the phrase so it just like can roll easy off your tongue too. Unconditional positive regard for the clients that you are with, because not only is that impactful on clients, especially whenever you're working with any kind of client that has trauma, or any kind of client who just has not received that in their life. If they don't have someone who has unconditional positive regard for them, then even just that can be therapeutic. For example, the kids that I've worked with at my internship in jail, if you remember, incarcerated adolescent males, it can be therapeutic for them just to have someone that they know, literally no matter what they do, I'm not going to dislike them. I can put them in check. I can be a little disappointed sometimes, obviously, but I'm not going to hold a grudge against them. I'm not going to tell them they're trash. Just having unconditional positive regard for someone can be therapeutic to them. Going along with that, the unconditional positive regard, like I said, I'm just going to keep saying it, puts you in a place where when you enter a room with clients or with coworkers or anyone, you're not thinking that anyone is below you. I think that is another thing that people need to get really used to before, or like while studying social work, because like I said, like I don't do these perfectly all the time. I just think they're important things to keep in mind. But as a social worker, just get it out of your head that there is anyone below you. If you think that your clients are below you and you are swooping in to save them, that's not the attitude. Even if you think you can mask that attitude, even if you do think your clients are below you, maybe you wouldn't explicitly say it, but if you like really think deep down, dig deep, and find that you do think that somehow you are superior to your clients, they'll pick up on that. Like they definitely will pick up on that based on your tone, your expressions, and it just won't be as effective. So the two things to be introspective about: practice having unconditional positive regard to people. If someone cuts you off in traffic, give them a reason, give them grace. Just start to practice it. Don't let yourself get riled up. Try not to let yourself get riled up. Try to believe that everyone's doing the best that they can with what they have in any given moment, the knowledge they have, the resources they have, etc. And then with that, practice not thinking anyone's below you, not thinking you are above literally anyone in this world, whether they are poor, whether they are incarcerated, whether they are different religion, whether they hold different political beliefs, whether they are a different color than you, whether they present their gender differently than you, whatever it is, you are not above anyone else. Tough mindset to hold. I'm not trying to say I do it perfectly, I don't, but I do think that those are super important when going into social work. Maybe that wasn't the answer you're looking for, but that's the answer I'm given. And then last but not least, I won't go too deep into this because I have talked about it in some previous videos, but I do keep seeing comments from you guys that are stressed about time management, which is fair, especially when you have a lot going on. Like I've said, like I really admire people who have kids and go to school, who maintain a full-time job and go to school, who are caretakers for their parents or for siblings and are doing school at the same time. Like my heart goes out to you, and obviously I did not do that, and there were days that I felt like I was at my breaking point, and so my heart goes out to you. And time management is tough for sure. Like I said, I won't go too deep because I have touched on it before, but I think reminding yourself that whatever period you are in is temporary is also helpful. You know, keeping that end goal in mind of like, I'm in school and doing all of this now so that in the future I will be able to whatever it is. At the same time, trying to the best of your ability not to zero in totally on the responsibilities that you have, and using your resources to have some sort of time doing things that you enjoy is so important as well. And then like specifically with school, with time management, a tip would be to do your very best not to leave things to the last minute, just because things get stressful and typically you don't do quite as good of a job. And so honestly what I did is I would lie to myself about due dates lots of times. Like whenever I was putting due dates in my calendar, I would make them be a couple days before it was actually due, just because I found that helped me feel the pressure to get things done before it was actually time to be pressured. If you are soon entering a new season of grad school or of some type of school or some new new type of responsibility. A really big thing, I think, is to the best of your ability to incrementally add things to your schedule, so it's not just 0 to 100 so super quick. See if you can, kind of start with your classwork, and then a few days later your internship starts, and then a few days later do whatever you need to do so you can incrementally add to it. Use your support system if you have one. Hopefully you have one. Whether that means just like a FaceTime call with a friend where you can vent and get things off your chest, whether that means a friend who is willing to take your kid to ice cream while you finish up a paper, whatever it may be, use your support system, because those are important. And that was one thing I learned definitely in grad school, is that support systems are important. I did like this fun casual video. Feels so fun and cuddly. This is my favorite blanket, by the way. Got it junior year of high school. And is it a security blanket? Maybe. The world will never know. Yeah, I'm always down to answer questions, to give insight, to share my wisdom whenever you need. I like to be transparent. I definitely believe in transparency. If you have any further questions for me, I love doing Q&As, having you give me talking points so I don't have to come up with them. It's great. Obviously, this is a big season of change in my life, so I just am so thankful that you're here watching, you're here supporting me like crazy. It makes my heart flutter every day, and I'm so excited for all that is to come, for me, for you, for us. And I'll see you next time.